All right, so what we're going to do in this instructional video is we're going to learn how to come up with topics for the academic speech. And I always tell students, you want to make sure that you spend some time coming up with a good topic for a speech. Look, good topics just don't magically fall from the sky, and so you want to put some effort into coming up with a topic that's not only going to work for you for the assignment, but it's going to give you a chance to be as successful as possible with the academic speech that you're putting together. So, let's see if we can come to an understanding as to how to find good topics for the academic speech. And let's start by considering topics for an informative speech. And one thing I always tell students when it comes to being an informative speaker, always remember the two ways. You want a topic that's going to amuse and amaze the audience. And what I mean by that is you want your topic to be amusing in the sense that it's significantly relevant to the audience. Like the audience go, oh, cool, I'm learning about this stuff. This is really interesting. I like the material. So you've got to make sure that you have a topic that's significant and relevant to the audience. And essentially when you're thinking of informative topics, I always tell the audience or tell the students to begin by just thinking of a noun, right? So when you look at a noun, you've got three parts. You've got people, you've got places, and you've got things. You want to make this a really easy assignment, then do your speech on a person. So, great topics for informative speeches. Do your speech on a person. And as far as the person that you select, you just want to make sure that that person is significant and relevant enough so you'll be able to at least find 4 sources of information, 4 sources of research on that particular individual. But essentially, any individual can work. And one thing I always like to ask the students, I've been teaching public speaking since the early 1980s. And when it comes to informative speaking, I have heard more speeches on this single individual than any other individual. And I always ask the students, hey, who do you think it is? You know, Martin Luther King Jr. Sometimes I'll get a LeBron James, right? But you know who the person is? Probably not going to guess, but if I give you one clue, you'll get it. Happiest place on earth. That's right. I have heard more informative speeches on Walt Disney than anyone else. It's not even close. I think that kind of shows the little kid in each of you. So if you want to make this a real easy speech assignment, do your speech on a person. You just want to make sure that that person is significant enough so you can find research on the individual. If you think of the noun, though, another great way to come up with a topic for an informative speech is do your speech on a place. And I mean, it could be something very specific. In fact, a couple years ago, I heard a great informative speech on the history of Solano Community College. I've been teaching here for 20-some years, but I learned in that speech that with Solano, they actually moved to this campus in 1972. They started in 1946 over at the Vallejo High School campus, and so that was a cool, relevant, significant speech, and it related to the audience members because they were all students here at Solano. But you could switch it up. You could do your speech on a country. You could do it on a particular city. You could do it on a tourist spot, right? You could do an informative speech on the state of Alaska. So any place, as long as you know you'll be able to find research on that particular place, will work as a topic for the informative speech. And then the last category when you think of nouns would be things. And essentially, anything can work as a topic for an informative speech. And I kind of divide those things into a couple different aspects. If you want to make it a really interesting, kind of cutting edge, informative speech, do your speech on some kind of technology, right? The more recent, the better. I heard a speech, this was probably 5 years ago, on vertical farms. And what they're doing in a lot of urban areas, they're building skyscrapers, and they're using the skyscrapers to grow food. Vertical farms. I heard that speech, as I said before, about 5 years ago. And just a couple weeks ago, I think it was on 60 Minutes, they were showing all of the vertical farms that have now been constructed. So that was a cool, really interesting topic. And remember, when you come up with an informative topic, you want a topic that both amuses the audience. Oh, this is cool. I like this. But you also want to amaze the audience. You want to get a couple, whoa, I didn't know that during the speech. If you can do that, you've got a good informative topic. So technological topics work really well. Heck, you could give an informative speech on the latest iPhone. That will work as a topic for the informative speech. And then too, if you're not really into the technological aspect, I promise you this. You walk around the house with a pad and a pen for 10 minutes, you'll come up with all kinds of ideas for an informative speech. And over the years, I've heard really good informative speeches on things like coffee, tea, peanut butter, toothbrush. I heard a really funny informative speech on the history of the toilet. I heard another really entertaining speech on the history of the bra. In fact, my job really cool. I get a lot of trivial information just from listening to your speeches. In fact, who do you think, what's the name of the person who invented the bra? This was back in the 1600s. It was a German fellow, and I kid you not, his name was Otto Titzlinger. Mr. Titzlinger was the name of the person who invented the first bra. I learned that in an informative speech. So you just walk around the house with a pad and a pen, start writing stuff down, all kinds of ideas for really cool informative speeches. And then also think about recreational activities. What are some things that you like to do? I heard a really cool informative speech a couple years ago just on the history of skateboarding. Really cool, interesting, kind of a different vibe to the speech, but worked really well as an informative speech. So what kinds of things do you like to do? What do you do for fun? That could be a topic for an informative speech. So when you look at informative speeches, always think of a noun. You can do your speech on a person, you can do your speech on a place, you can do your speech on a thing, and when you're thinking of things, you can go more the technological route, or you can go kind of the everyday household recreational topics will work. And the last category that I like to bring up, you could also do your speech on an animal. Audiences like to hear about animals, so as long as there's a reason why we should know about the particular animal, that will work as a topic for an informative speech. Heard a really cool informative speech years back on the Jack Terrier. And the thing I remember from that speech, the Jack Terrier dog is used more in film and TV than any other kind of dog. So animal topics also work really well as an informative topic. So I hope that gives you enough information. If you're going to go the informative route, those are places to look to come up with a good topic. All right. The next category or type of speech is the behavioral persuasive speech. And I would say while it's easy to come up with informative topics, I think of the three speeches you can choose from, it's the most challenging to come up with a good topic for a behavioral persuasive speech. Because really what you're after with that speech, one, you want to convince the audience that a problem exists, but you also want to be able to motivate them to take action to solve that particular problem. And so those topics are hard to come up with. And with the behavioral persuasive speech, you want to make sure that you don't do your speech on a topic where the audience already knows the information. Look, I shouldn't hear a behavioral persuasive speech on why smoking cigarettes is bad. The few of the people in the class that probably still smoke, they've heard it before. They know smoking is bad, and I doubt that anything that you say in a 5 to 7 minute speech will get the reaction from the audience member with, you know what, I didn't know smoking was so harmful, I'm going to stop. So what happens if you pick a topic, and I call topics like this, topics beaten like a dead horse, audience already knows, I should eat nutritious foods, I should stay away from fast food, I should wear seatbelts, I should vote. And if I had $1 for every persuasive speech that I've heard demonstrating how to put a condom on, my house would be paid for. Remember, I started teaching in the early 1980s, right with the start of the AIDS advent. I can't count the number of speeches that I've heard about safe sex, but now we know everything we probably need to know, so there's nothing that you can say in that speech that's going to actually motivate the audience to take action. They've already made those decisions. They know that information. In fact, the only entertainment value in a speech like that would be the things that you students bring in to demonstrate how to put on a condom. I always appreciated the students who come in, and they would actually go to the biology department, but they would bring in a replica of a big 15-inch penis, and all that happened in that speech, all the guys walked out, our self-esteem was completely ruined. That's what it's supposed to look like, so please, we don't need anybody demonstrating how to put a condom on. That would be an example of a topic that wouldn't work as a behavioral persuasive speech because we know the information already. So the key with a good behavioral speech is to come up with a problem that the audience isn't 100% familiar with. Now you've got to room to convince them the problem exists and then persuade them to take action. If the audience doesn't buy into the problem, they'll be less motivated to take action to solve the problem. So behavioral persuasive speech is really any problem that you want to advocate that needs a solution can work, but make sure you get a topic that's really going to resonate with the audience if you really want to persuade them to take action to solve the problem. All right, and then the last one, attitudinal persuasive speech. Essentially, that works for any issue of controversy. Boy, and you look at our world right now, shouldn't be too much problem coming up with a topic that focuses on an issue of controversy. But you can do a lot of different things with this particular speech, especially with the elections right around the corner. I mean, you could do an attitudinal persuasive speech on why Democrats should choose Bernie over Biden or the other way around. When we get a little bit closer to the presidential elections, we get a lot of attitudinal persuasive speeches where the speaker, the student giving the speech, is focusing on trying to convince the audience to vote for a particular candidate. Or it could be on any issue of controversy like gun safety or gun control, immigration, or you could even take it to the field of entertainment or to sports. One of the best attitudinal persuasive speeches that I heard, this was about 10 years ago, on why LeBron James is actually the best player in the NBA over Michael Jordan. Issue of controversy will work as a topic for the attitudinal persuasive speech. But the key thing that you want to do when you're searching for topics, don't just try to come up with the single best topic. What I recommend is take about 30 minutes and go through the process of brainstorming. Kind of figure out which way you'd like to go. Maybe you want to do an informative speech, so that's where you're going to walk around the house with a pad and a pen, or think about inventions and things that you have that you really like. That could work as a topic for an informative speech. But make a list. And so what I advocate when you're trying to come up with a topic for the academic speech, brainstorm until you have a list of 10 possible topics. Now, I want to come up with an objective criteria that I can use to choose the best topic out of a list of 10. And to do that, always think of 3 things. Look at the topics and rank them 1 through 10 in terms of which topic do you like? Which topic do you think would be the least interesting to do? Rank them 1 through 10, 1 being the topic that you like the best. Second, think about the audience and then rank your topics 1 through 10 based on which topic you think the audience will like the most. And then what I suggest, because research is such an important part of this particular speech, you want to make sure that you can find information. So what I suggest, once you have the topics that you're choosing from, do a preliminary research search to see how much information is available for each of those topics, i.e. the topic that has the most available research will get the #1 ranking. And so always think of ease and accessing the information as a criterion when it comes to selecting a topic. So for topic selection, brainstorm, try to get at least a list of 10. Then you're going to rank them based on your personal preference, preference of the audience, and availability of research. Well, I hope that gives you enough to go on now and that you understand the difference between the informative speech, the behavioral persuasive speech, and the attitudinal persuasive speech. And you should be on the right track right now as far as finding topics, how to select the best topic from a list of topics to be the topic that you're going to use for your academic speech.